at Finesse and at U of T. And we're very honored to have Constance here to do a teaching and do some ceremony with us. And I feel a little nervous, so
I feel a little nervous too.
but
Let's hold
Constance-
hands and do it.
Constance is just one of the most wonderful, kind, loving, helpful people. And I feel really honored that Constance traveled all the way from Victoria and do this ceremony for us. So it's a great honor to introduce Constance Simmonds. And I'll just maybe turn over to you for the opening prayer and whatever you want to say further about yourself.
The calls of introductions. Well, for me, I think that's really important. Say thank you to your teachers. That's first and foremost an important show of good intention, of good manners. And I just want to say, you know, I was born into a military family. My father was a military man. So I have lived all over Canada in every province except the Maritimes. So I know a lot of places. But my home is still back in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. So in my dreamscape, I still see the northern lights dancing in the backdrop of my dream world. That's land that I know. That's land that from my childhood. And I always hearken back to those memories of my childhood, the feel of the land, the beauty of the prairies, the big sky country, the smell of the wild roses, the crocuses of spring, on and on and on. That is what fills my heart up. So those are my homelands. I just want to light this fire again to make sure that, wait. I'm not the best fire keeper in the world, so I apologize in advance. So I think a place to begin in this larger conversation, you guys probably already know this to death, but it's the starting point of my part of the conversation, of this larger conversation. An Indigenous worldview, one Indigenous worldview that was taught to me that I stand behind. Before we were human beings, we were created in the celestials. And when that egg and sperm came together, there was a spark of life, a spirit entering in that union, that spark. And when you came through those sacred, well, when you were formed in spirit, each spirit was given spiritual gifts to carry. Not all spiritual gifts are the same, but Creator gave that to you. And when you come through those sacred birth waters and you breathe your first breath, your spiritual gifts came with you. So our journey through as human beings is to come to know ourselves so that we can understand our gifts to the best of our abilities. And if we have two healthy, functioning parents, they guide us in developing our gifts. And we hone our gifts and we develop them so that we can help other human beings. We're all Escabe. We all have to help one another. Nobody makes it through life on their own. We all need one another. And the other reason we're here is to grow our spiritual knowledge so that when we leave our bodies behind and we continue on our journey to the other side to sit with the ancestors, we will have grown in our spirit. So if you take that point of view, and you're talking about Indigenous health, to me, it indicates that each individual, you guys included, but each client that we serve is on their own individual path. Each individual makes mistakes in life. Some of them are more tragic than others, but nonetheless, each human being has a right to their mistakes. That's how we learn and grow. Hopefully we make a mistake and we learn from it. Not everybody's like that. Some people are destined for various reasons, which you've all studied and understand. Like, for example, intergenerational trauma. It's destined to repeat their mistakes, their errors in judgment, their miscalculation. And they have to repeat and repeat and repeat until they learn the lesson so that they can go on. We as helpers can walk alongside people that we're assisting. We can't change them. We can encourage them, and we can use the spiritual gifts that each one of us was given to assist them. And that is all. And that journey might be a long one, it might be a short one. It doesn't matter. We show up in one another's lives according to what Creator has for us. Some people come into our lives and give a teaching, not always a positive teaching. Sometimes a hurtful teaching. Nonetheless, it's a teaching. So rather than be discouraged and go in on ourselves and be downtrodden and traumatized, we can say, what does Creator have to teach me in this moment? You guys, I think that's really important, because in this day and age, in our institutions, society has changed so much that now it's rather than building relationships and collaborative conversations, it's judging one another and gaslighting one another, and that's done through social media, which to me is a real chicken shit way of resolving issues and has nothing to do with relationship. Pardon me, I'm an old prairie girl. Some of my swears sometimes come in, but they get to the point quicker than saying a billion words. So excuse me for that. And that's really important for you to remember, so that when you make errors in judgment, or you step in a place where you have no business being, because you don't have the knowledge, forgive yourself and move on. That's called discernment. And that's part of our development as human beings. You know, we start separating from our parents in our teenage years. And we want to hang out with our friend group. And through the hanging out of the friend group, we learn to discern who's good for us and who's not so good for us. And that carries on throughout life. And it's not a bad thing, because when we make those errors in judgment, and it forces us to go inward and to have a deep conversation with ourselves, especially when you're being gaslit. That introspection is a really important part of human growth. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be traumatized from it. Don't let it knock you from your path. But just know that that introspection is good. It too is a prayer. And if you can see it through those eyes, then you can see it through the eyes of clients that you're trying to serve, and not judge them. And if you can see it in your clients, then you're more open, you're more apt to want to listen to their story. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I told this, but I did 40 years of social work in forensics and forensic psychiatry. So I know this stuff really well. I did it on the downtown east side of Vancouver when that pig farmer was murdering all our women. And I did it in Toronto as a case manager. I specialized in addictions, mental health, and trauma recovery. It was always my pleasure to serve the clients first. I'm not a political person. I didn't choose academia. I'm a single mom. I raised my 2 kids to have academic careers. But on my desire, because my medicine was so strong in me, was to serve clients. And that passion never stopped to me until I just got too old, where I finally said, time for me to give up that work and transition into being in that northern direction of my medicine wheel. These things I'm saying, do they make sense to you? I've always found the medicine wheel really important. When I look at it through the eyes of human development, I could easily say, oh, I'm in the northern direction of my life now. It's time for me not to get adrenaline hits anymore. From being with people with high risk behaviors. I served my time. I did it well. I stand in my prayer, my work. I stand in the work that I did over 40 years doing this work. And now it's time for me to be in this place of my life and leave you young ones to do your service, to get your war stories, to meet all kinds of people from all kinds of walks of life, to use your academic knowledge, but to use your spiritual gifts too. That the combination of those two is infallible, really. And if you are of the mind of understanding that before you do your academic, professional business on a client, first and foremost, you form a relationship with them. You can't form a healthy, good, positive relationship unless you have a relationship with yourself first. For those of us who come from trauma, a trauma background, that work of becoming as a human being is to take care of those trauma pieces and see to your own personal healing. That develops empathy for the people that you're serving. Because that word metakliash, that all my relations saying is that not only are we in relationship to every living thing on earth, but we're in relationship to everyone that crosses our paths. And without judgment, people coming in and out of our lives, it's okay to let that go. And I'm telling you this because in this day and age, when we're so distracted by what's out there, what society puts on us, we have to compete. We have to be prettier. We have to be more handsome. We have to achieve. We get separated from our spiritual walk. And our spiritual walk is our prayer, is what keeps us going forward, which gives us our visions for what's our next step for yourselves as individual, but in terms of your career. And if it ignites passion in you and you serve that passion by being an Oskabe, it will take you far. I did 40 years and I remained very passionate about everything that I did in those 40 years until I just ran out of steam. But I'm old, so I was allowed to run out of steam. Now I'm on a different path. And I could only hope the same for you. And if you start at an Indigenous worldview and you open your hearts to hear other worldviews, then you're not righteous. You're just a human being on a journey. So you're not self-righteous. Therefore, there's no judgment of other people. There's just an opening of your heart and your mind and a learning and understanding the human condition. And if you work from the premise that we are body, mind, emotion, and spirit, that's the 4 directions of the medicine wheel. And if you can, these are my teachings that were given to me. I know there's many teachings from many different nations, but this is what was given to me, so that's what I'm going to talk about. If, for example, you can vision a medicine wheel inside of yourself and check in with yourself daily, and sometimes in a crunch or a crisis, many times a day, and you can say, well, what's my body telling me? My body aching and uncomfortable. Did I overdo it? Did I or stress getting me? What are my emotions doing? Am I all over the map emotional? And by the way, just because you have an emotion doesn't mean you have to act on it. Just observe it. It's just knowledge, right? You don't have to act out every emotion because that knocks you off your path, your vision of where you want to go in life. And it puts you in a wheel of repetition. So don't be sidetracked, just observe your emotions, where they're at. And, you know, in this day and age, anxiety and depression is pretty common. So if you check in with your mind, what is my mind saying to me? Because we all have that voice that whispers in our ears. Sometimes that voice says, you're not enough. You should be ashamed. All of those negative things quietly is whispering in our ears. So if we come up against something in life, those voices roar in us. And if we listen to those voices, well, we're in depression and anxiety. And that's such a trap. And not necessary. And not necessary. So that brings me to spirit. When you ground yourself in spirit, if you see yourself in a continuum of life, in a continuum of all living things, in a continuum of our body of governance, that makes us small, but it also makes us important, that we are our own persons as individual human beings with spiritual gifts. And that's very grounding. So if you go through your own personal medicine wheel and you come back to spirit, then you dive deep into your heart and you can hear spirit whispering to you. And that counteracts the negative voices in your mind. And I know we all have them, especially in this day and age of social media, competition, and what society is putting out there for how dictating how we should be. And that's not a human experience. That's psychotic in my mind. But when you ground yourself in who you are as a human being, then there's love there, self-love. Then there's gratitude there. Good morning, Creator. Thank you for my life. Thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you that the rays of that sunshine warm me and greet me. Or thank you for the rain that is feeding Mother Earth and replenishing. All of that, if we can start today, I don't know if it's your way to smudge. My smudge bowl is out, and I might smudge depending on what's going on in my day. I might smudge myself several times a day because it's not called medicine without reason. It's good medicine. Learning that medicine brings me to a place of calm where I'm well grounded in my spirit again. And you who serve others, if smudging is your way, when you're with a client or you're in a crisis or your work studies are getting too much, ground yourself, regroup. That's a prayer. And if you go back to being grounded, then time isn't all clumped together, it stretches out. And if you go moment by moment by moment, following your vision, following that prayer you have for yourself, it eases the anxiety. It eases those choices that you make that lack self-care. And it gives you space to make different and better choices of self-care. Yeah. And when you're doing that and you're modeling it for the people you serve, your colleagues, your clients, the institution, you're bringing well-being. And that's the basis of forming healthy relationships. You're modeling that. And if you have children, you're modeling that to your children. So when you give yourself permission to do good, healthy self-care, it's like you're giving your family members permission to take care of themselves. And little children might not be able to put that in words, but children are like little ducklings, you know, when the big mama quacks, they learn how to quack. They learn how to walk and waddle. They learn how to swim. If you're modeling that in your family constellation, even when you come from a place where there's intergenerational trauma or unhealthy family constellations, if you model that for yourself, it might cause an uproar in a dysfunctional family, but eventually over time, if you stick to your prayers and stick to your guns, it will influence the people who might be dysfunctional. And if it doesn't, over time, then you have to make the decision to go forward in your prayer. That's called autonomy. And I want to say this to you because I see you as young people. Sometimes parents will hang on to their children and not allow them to grow. And especially where addictions are concerned or trauma is concerned. A parent might want to control that person, maybe not consciously, but that child is put in the position of being the parent to the parent. And at some point in human development, as you learn and you grow, in a good, kind way, in a loving manner, you may have to say to yourself, my parent is not capable of meeting my needs. But now I'm old enough to take care of that child inside of me, to parent that child. And I have skills, and I have education, and I've walked this earth long enough that I can parent myself and make these decisions. Doesn't mean that you love your parents any less. It means that you're going to make a choice to go forward in a good way in your life. And when you come out of trauma or dysfunction, when you make those choices, you will be amazed that the people you will attract to you in your journey, they'll be healthier. And autonomy is such a precious word to me. So this is such a large part, because we know in the Western institutions of academia, there's all kinds, especially in the healing arts, there's all kinds of modality. And I'm thinking now, because I'm an old social worker, of counseling modalities. Those are good, those are good, those are good, but they're not sufficient. And you can't solve anything by a telephone or a Zoom conversation or even an office meeting in an hour once a month. And although the person who's helping you might give you exercises to do. It's about, first and foremost, building relationship. And listening to your story. And if anybody here has read The Truth About Stories, you will know in our human development, we tell ourselves our life stories and we reconfigure them over time as we mature and grow and learn life lessons. So maybe at one time you might say, my mother is just the bane of my existence. She's such a bitch. She's horrible and I don't like her and I don't want to be anything like her. And you get to my age and you go, oh my God, I'm my mother. But in that journey of human development, you learn to stand away from that and develop your own autonomy so that you see your parents through a different lens. That's really important. You begin to see as you grow and mature that your parents had lives long before you were born. So you're not the center of their universe. Sometimes the trauma is the center of their universe. That's really unfortunate. And sometimes you can say, oh, well, my mother had a life before I came into the picture. I wonder who she is as a human being and not as my mother. And not all parents are capable of doing the parenting that you need as a child, but you know, you're bright people, you're mature people. You're congregating and learning and growing from one another's soul. You're developing the skills of autonomy. And that too is forgiveness towards a parent. My mom lived till she was 95. But the last decade of her life, she had dementia. And I was her power of attorney, so I oversaw her care and her financial portfolio. And she lived in the Okanagan Valley in BC. I lived here in Toronto. So several times a year I would go to where she was and just check in on her. And the forgiveness for me came in saying, well, what am I going to do? Beat up on an 80-year-old woman who's lived a life? And she lived a good life in her mind. You know, she paid attention. She was responsible to the best of her ability. She wasn't the mother that I needed for who I am. But I could forgive her. You know, that's so beautiful because it allowed me to love her unconditionally. And then it gave me the privilege of taking care of her until she passed away. And that was such a beautiful thing. I gained so much from that forgiveness. And I'm sharing that with you because I want it to be so for each and every one of you. So we all have our pasts. We all have stuff. But it doesn't have to knock us off our sacred vision of who and where we want to be in life. I think about young Gavin here. I don't know your family. I don't know you, except that I know you're a bright young man. And you've made choices in your life to come over this way and learn these things here with these people. And I see and I hear from listening to you that these have been good choices for you, regardless of what goes on in your home life. So that when you do go home, you have your own stories, your own life experiences that are not the family dynamic, right? And that's very mature. That's what we call developing. And it doesn't matter if you're a teenager, a young adult, or you're a little girl like me at 75. There's always opportunity to learn and grow. Sitting and listening to you and hearing your stories is such a privilege because I learn and grow. And that excites me at my age. And I see myself as just a human being. I don't see myself as anything fancy or in high esteem. I see myself as part of a larger conversation of Indigenous health. And you have many, many learned people who teach you. Dr. Stewart, prime example of such a good, kind woman. who lives her beliefs. And she does that with the great responsibility of being director for this initiative. But she carries prayers in her heart. She walks in love and in a beautiful and kind way. And she is a good role model for you all. I hope she's rubbing off on you as you go through your studies. So I'm kind of running out of stuff. I'm getting tired of the sound of my own voice. But I want to say to you how much I appreciate the sacrifices you've made for your academic journey, for the knowledge that you carry through these experiences. And I want to encourage you to look through the lens of an Indigenous worldview and find yourself for your own state of well-being. I often tell people that I'm working with on a one-to-one basis, let's make a wellness plan. Let's do concentric circles. In that first circle, write me, because I'm at the center of my circle. In that next circle, I put the names of the people in my friend group, who are my support. Sometimes they're my parents, sometimes they're siblings, sometimes they're aunties, whatever. So those are not the people that you go tell your stuff to, by the way. Those are the people that are part of your path. You don't go to them and tell them your stories, because after a while it gets to sound like a boo-hoo, especially if it's a repetitive habit. And then your friends and relatives begin to look at, well, no, I don't want to be with that person. All I'm going to do is hear complaints and a fine wine, and I'm not in the mood for that. And the other part of that, those friends will begin to look at you as, oh, poor you. And you will be seen as poor. And who wants to be called poor? You laugh. You think that's funny, but it's so true, right? So that next circle in your concentric circles would be your supports. Maybe you have a therapist. Maybe you have doctor. Maybe you have a couple of doctors. Maybe you want a doctor, but you're not part of your own support group. These are people that help you in your health and wellness. Maybe you have a life coach. Maybe you have a yoga instructor. So I always put their names in that circle. And then in the last circle, I put things that I'm involved with in my community. Like I just moved to Victoria where I don't know a soul. So I hang out with the old people at the Friendship Center, and oh my God, we laugh and laugh and laugh, and we have such a good time because nobody cares. And nobody has a filter anymore at my age. And there's lots of laughter and good feelings. So I hang out there. I want to join Tai Chi because I have a martial arts background in my life, and now I'm too old to do what I used to do. So I thought Tai Chi would be a kinder, gentler way to go. So that would go on my list on my outer circle. Ways that I plug into community. I have elders that I still talk to. Unfortunately, my elder Pauline Shirt passed away. I loved her. She comes from Cree country too. And when I took tobacco to ask her to be my elder, she took my tobacco and gave me a gift and said, "I'm not your elder, we're friends because we're of a similar age." And that just like, oh my God. But I have elders that I sit with that hold my feet to the fire and keep me accountable. And that's important in my life. Because I have no filter and I can't just go off willy-nilly doing harm. I need to be accountable. I need to be accountable in my prayers. So I would like to hear your feedback. Does any of this resonate with any of you? So in the land of Indigenous health, lots of data is being collected. Lots and lots of really smart people are writing papers and forging new territories. But I think this is an important part of the conversation of serving people as well. So does anybody have any questions? Or comments?
We have about 5 to ish or so minutes for questions, comments.
No wonder I'm running out of steam. I talked and talked and talked. Hi, Gavin.
Alright,
Yeah, speak up. Speak up because I'm old.
we'll do. That autonomy piece, your parents and that piece of letting go.
You have to come here, Gavin. I'm so sorry.
All good.
If it was 10 years earlier, I could hear you just like that.
All good. That piece of autonomy and your parents letting go, right? And letting you grow into your own person, right?
Yeah.
That piece and them just not letting go. How do you reconnect afterwards? How do you rebuild that afterwards?
Because I think you have an adult inside of you that takes care of your inner child.
Okay.
So that helps you achieve maturity. And your conversation and your demeanor will be different when you go back to your parents. Now, they may try with their own insecurity to put you in that little boy position again.
Mhm.
But you're not in that position. So you can have adult conversation. Like I had to say with my mother, I love you, but you can't provide me what I need, but I can provide what I need. So I don't have to listen to you anymore because you're not healthy for me, but I can love you. And I can manage your behavior because I have those skills.
Right.
So that was really important as she went on a decline into dementia. It was a slow downhill, slow. And managing her behavior meant that I could keep our relationship on a uplifted mode, as opposed to, oh my God, I'm this age, I have children of my own, and I have to try and be a little girl. So your ego is satisfied? No, no can do. If that's helpful to you at all.
English.
Yeah, and it's a big contemplation. Yeah, and it doesn't change overnight.
Right.
You change, and that's the most important part of your story. Right? Because this is your journey, not theirs.
Right.
Yeah.
English.
Al?
Thanks. I'm, because you talked a lot about, and all of the work is around responding to trauma, right? And, I'm thinking of like compassion fatigue,
You're
right?
thinking of what?
Compassion fatigue or
Oh my
that
God, yeah,
vicarious trauma piece.
absolutely.
So I wonder if you have any suggestions on how we can guard our spirits while
Wow,
serving others in that way
I think
and
prayer is,
protecting, ourselves.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I don't.
So I think prayer, your own prayers. That doesn't mean you have to get down on your knees, hands and knees and do this. The prayer can be a song. It can be a thought in passing. Oh, I made it through. Thank you, Creator. Or I have an intention that I want to go forward in this way. So I'm going to burn and lay my tobacco down. That's my prayer intention. A wellness plan is really important in this work. Because compassion fatigue is real. I can say this to you because I was passionate and lasted 40 years before I pooped out. And then boy, was I fatigued. I just couldn't hear any more trauma stories.
Yeah.
Because I was of an age and it was time for me to move to a different part of the house. Also, if you acknowledge that you're not in competition with one another, that you're collaborative, you're learning and growing together. If you can learn and understand how to debrief one another, and I was taught by the Vancouver City Police how to debrief because I was doing forensic psychiatric outreach. I was in a lot of critical incidences and so they professionally would put me in a circle and and debrief me so that I could lay it down. They always said, you did a good job. Everybody went home safe, good job. If you had it to do over again, would you do anything different? All those things, down and dirty, you debrief once and then you let it go and move on to the next. And I never met clients. I would meet clients back to back to back. You know, Suzanne, what that's like. But I would smudge in between. And because their trauma or whatever they're going through is like a tar that sticks to your psyche. So I would cleanse myself. And I would cleanse myself so that I was in good shape to meet the next person. And often I would bring them in to my office and close the door, and I would have a smudge bowl loaded. And I would say, can I make you a cup of tea? Would you like to lay a prayer down? Or would you like me to lay a prayer down on your behalf? Have you eaten today? Can I fix you something to eat, a late snack? And I always made sure I had healthy snacks. Because lots of people came to me and hadn't eaten. Do you have housing security? Can I help you get housing security? Are you ready to come off the street or no? And that's okay. Just meet people where they're at. Does that help you out?
Yeah.
That means that I'm not joining them in their trauma. That means that I'm providing a service to them. And when they leave me and we've made an appointment for our next meeting, I let that go. I don't take that home with me at night. I never, in 40 years, I take those things home with me. And that's good hygiene. Yeah,
Yeah, you really have to protect your mental space,
you
right?
have to.
So, because I think, I'm not a therapist, but but if you're in that mental space where you're, like feeling too much of their trauma piece,
Yeah.
then you're not in a position to be able to reflect and help them in the way that they're necessarily need.
And at the end of the day, it's your journey of health and wellness. You're just a servant. You're not taking on other people's stuff. You're hearing it. You're using your skills, all the skills that you can bring to bear. Like I was famous in the downtown east side of Vancouver because I did wraparound, multidisciplinary wraparound, and we would have monthly meetings. What are we going to do? How are we going to? Everybody stays in their own lane. Everybody's well versed in what their discipline is, and there's no crossover. We hear the voice of the person who's speaking in their discipline. And through that, there's a cohesive wraparound. And as a case manager, I would, at the end of that meeting, I would summarize, you're doing this, you're doing that. You're gonna make this phone call, you're gonna write this letter, you're gonna meet with this person, and we're gonna kick the system in the butt and make it move on behalf, shake, rattle, and roll on behalf of the client we're serving.
Yeah.
Whether that's in court or through the health system at a street level. Yeah,
Yeah, and that idea of meeting your client where they're at,
where they're at,
and not pushing your own agenda,
never.
right? Always just drawing from what that client needs to.
And not every client you meet wants your help. Is ready for that kind of help that you bring to bear. Maybe downright rude, maybe gaslight you and talk about you behind your back. But your work is your work. Your prayer is your prayer. Standing in your prayer, like I prayed for years and years and years, Creator, help me to be a better servant. That's a prayer of humility. And for the client that I was serving on the downtown east side who were drug addicted and homeless and had severe mental health issues. For me, that was a good prayer because it put me in the position of A, showing up, B, listening, not thinking I'm coming to the table knowing, listening so that I can be informed of what it is that I can do that's helpful. And not preaching to anybody and not having an idea of where I wanted them to be in their journey. It was always really good to ask somebody, well, what does good health look like in your viewpoint? What does that mean to you? Sometimes it's not the traditional settler medicine. Sometimes it's this. And I never claimed to be a healer, but I knew enough and I was well known enough in any community I worked in where I could bring those traditional people in to bring them to bear for each person. If that's what they wanted, if that's the way they wanted to go. Yeah. Which, how we doing?
Everyone's waiting for lunch, probably.
Probably, and it's hot in here, yeah. So,
Maybe we could invite you to close. If anyone wants to talk to Constance, she'll be around for a few minutes after. But you
Yeah.
gotta whisk her away for lunch.
and Emily and Lisa are in meetings all day. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, they're
for
not
this.
meeting us?
No, so we can make our own plans or no plans, however you want it to be.
We'll talk about it after.
Yeah. So it came from my heart to yours. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me.